What up, gang? So I made this video recently.
I've been seeing so many people do filet crochet skirts, dresses, tops, and I thought I can do that. I should do that. I had to make a gauge swatch, and I finally figured out what a gauge swatch is and how it works. Because people always say, make a gauge swatch, make a gauge swatch, make a gauge swatch. They never actually tell you what it is and what it means. So I figured out from this, which is hopefully correct, because it's gonna be a lot of work, that my measurements are gonna be 90 squares across for my waist and 95 for the length. And now we have this.
And I realized that in it, I complained about people telling you to make a gauge swatch about your crochet projects, but I didn't actually explain what a gauge swatch is, so I did exactly what other people have done to me and I've complained about. So today, I'm going to give you a just simple rundown of what a gauge swatch is and what to do with it, how to make it, and yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to be telling you how I did the gauge swatch for the filet crochet skirt that I'm trying to make, so exactly the one from that video. But you can do this with any kind of stitch, any size hook, any type yarn, whatever materials your project requires. So I'm going to start with just a nice round number of foundation chains. So this is 21 foundation chains, which is going to give me exactly 10 squares of my filet crochet. It's good to pick a nice round numbers just so it's easier to do the conversions and the measurements and the calcs later. So now that I have my first row of 10 squares for my filet crochet, I'm going to do 10 rows just to bring this up to about a square, and that way it's going to be just a lot easier to keep track of measurements and then do the conversions. Right, so now that I have my gauge swatch, which I've kept as a square, so it's 10 stitches across and 10 rows high, I'm going to take a ruler or a measuring tape, whatever you have at hand, but this was already on my desk. So I'm going to use a ruler and I'm going to measure it across, and I'm going to do it around the middle because I think that would be the most accurate, but that's just my guess, honestly. So I'm going to measure it around the middle, and this is, I'm going to say this is 65 mil. For anyone who uses inches, it's about 2.5 inches. And I'm going to do the same for the height. So I'm going to measure it this way, and this is 85 mil, or I have no idea what that is. Less than 3.5 inches. Sorry, I don't do inches.
Now you can take a piece of paper and do the least fun part of this, which is the maths. So we know that we have 10 rows and we also have 10 squares. And I know this is a bit specific to filet crochet, but you can just enter the number of rows and stitches in your gauge swatch. So that's what's just different about this. And we know that the height of our gauge swatch is 85 millimeters and the width of it is 65 millimeters. This means that one row to be 85 mil divided by our 10 rows, and it's going to be 8.5 mil. So the height of one row is going to be an average of 8.5 mil. And we're going to do the same for the stitches. So I have the 10 stitches, so one stitch is going to be 65 mil divided by 10, which is 6.5 mil. Take your own measurements. So because this is going to be a skirt and my pattern is just a big rectangle, I have taken my measurement for the waist, which I'm not telling you my measurements. We're going to label as X, this measurement, and the length that I wanted to, which is going to be Y. So X and Y are going to be just your own measurements for whatever piece of clothing you're making. So now you take your width measurement, so X, you divide it by this number, so 6.5 in my case, and this is going to be the number of stitches that you need to accomplish the width of your measurement. And we're going to do the same thing for the Y measurement. So we're going to take your Y measurement. We're going to divide it by the number of one row. So 8.5. And that is going to be the number of rows So this is how you make a gauge swatch. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, as long as someone shows you and you don't spend a year and a half of crocheting without having a clue what a gauge swatch is and you can't find anyone to tell you what it is. So yeah, hopefully that made sense. Hopefully I explained it simply enough. Any questions, drop them down below. Happy to answer. So happy crocheting and hope to see you around. Deuces.